Welcome to Conversations with Leaders. My name is Scott Mullins, Managing Director of Worldwide Financial Services Business and Market Development at AWS. With me today is Sushan Tan, Managing Director and Group Head of Institutional Banking at DBS. Sushan, number one, it's great to see you again, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, you have walked a very interesting path to become one of Asia's most respected and influential business leaders. And that, by the way, includes serving as a member of parliament in Singapore. Can you tell us a little bit about DBS, number one, your current role, and then your career? How did you get to where you are?
So DBS was started 52 years ago by the Singapore government, essentially to develop Singapore. So our origins was the Development Bank of Singapore. And that sort of purpose and ethos of developing countries, developing customers, and creating businesses, creating commerce, and enabling success and creating wealth is a common purpose on which we were built on. As for me, well, I'm Singaporean, but I've spent a lot of my working life overseas. I started my working life in London. I worked in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and I came back to Singapore. Like you, I started life on the equity trading room. I was an equity derivatives person in London for many years. So that was fun when they still needed humans.
Well, that's something I'm very proud of. I know in my own career, and I know you're proud of that experience in yours as well. Hey, I'd like to start our conversation by talking about something else that you're proud of. You've mentioned it. It's the bank's digital platform, and when we talk about digital innovation, many people immediately talk about digital banking. Let's talk about the digital banking platform at DBS. That really is putting the customer at the center of the banking experience. Tell us about the customer experience. How does that create value for DBS?
So let me just bring you back. So DBS stood for the Development Bank of Singapore, as I said, given our roots of developing the country. And I often joke that it's now become the digital bank of Singapore. The D became digital. But if we get our jobs right and we really do a good job, we will disappear and will become the disappearing Bank of Singapore. So DBS disappears into our customers' journey. We disappear into our customers' everyday lives. We just, go into their platforms, their UX, and you can't see us. It's like the Intel chip in your PC. It's there. It works. It's seamless. It's intuitive, but it disappears. So that's kind of, the vision that we had. And really to get that vision a reality, we had to do three things. And the first was restack the technology organization, right? Really go from monolithic legacy systems to microservices into the cloud. The second was to really change the culture of the bank. Now, we often say culture eats strategy for breakfast, and changing the culture of the bank. How do you create a startup culture in a company that has 28,000 people, right? So really, really going into that. And then last and very importantly, how do you get into the customer's everyday journey? How do you empathize with the customer? How do you disappear into their journeys? And so taking those three big themes was how we started to create our digital platform. We set up on the customer journey side the human-centered design laboratory, which really put us into the customer's eyes, mind, psychology, user experience. We had our customers come in, play with our UX, play with our applications. We looked if they could find stuff on the menu bar. We looked if they were upset, if they couldn't get stuff they wanted straight away. We figured out or asked them what they wanted. So the key was to get the customer immersion right. We often joke in the past that people hated going to banks. It was worse than going to see a dentist. It was painful. And how do you make that journey less painful and more joyful? And that's how we came up with the concept of joyful banking, which in the past we thought might be a bit of an oxymoron, but really it was to bring that customer experience to the forefront and make it a happy one.
Well, that focus on customers and that willingness to experiment, it's paying off. Last year, the bank was recognized for serving customers in their time of need. Obviously, we had a year like hardly any others, at least no others that we've experienced in our lifetime, based on the pandemic that we're currently even still experiencing. How did you balance between serving your customers and then also taking care of your own organization?
When COVID hit, it was always, employees first, customers first, and let's just do the right thing. That overarching sense of doing the right thing and being purposeful was our true north. In fact, we were the first bank to have our first COVID case in Singapore. It was just get everyone home, get everyone safe, make sure everyone is safe, and then let's look after the customers. Customers who previously only dealt with paper and checks and cash, we had to teach them how to digitize literally overnight, right? So our people and our tech business partners worked in overdrive, and what would have taken us, I think, a year or a year and a half to really roll out, we rolled out in 6 weeks. So digital, so trade documents, which have always been very paper-based, became digitalized, right, overnight. When China had all the issues around trade and the ports were disrupted, as you know, this time last year, we were one of the first to bring OCR in, digitize all the trade so that PPE could get in and get out, so that medical supplies could get in and get out. So it was just kind of quick pivot, right? If you're agile and you're open to experimentation and you're guided by this culture of doing the right thing, magic happens, right? You just know what's the right thing to do. You can get everyone together and create that spirit of can do and do it with a purpose. And and I think that's what binds us together through tough times like what we've gone through last year.
Listen, a lot of what you said as you were talking, I just kept thinking, man, those are some problems that probably needed some deep analysis, but also some quick analysis. I know you guys think very much like we do that financial institutions, and specifically banks and retail-facing organizations, are lucky in that they do have a lot of data at their disposal in order to actually solve problems for customers. I'd love to just spend a few minutes talking about how DBS is leveraging data and analytics to actually improve the customer experience.
So you're right. I think banks have this treasure trove of customer data that I think a lot of companies would kill for. We know a lot about our customers. And in the past, I don't think we optimized this, and I don't think we put it into as good a use as we should and can do. But the way to do it is to really train our employees to understand how to use this data, how to recognize patterns. And to that, I want to give you guys a shout out. So last year during the COVID lockdown, we all downloaded the AWS Deep Racer. And we learned how machine learning and AI and machine learning helps to help us make better, sharper decisions around the data that we have. So if you can learn to drive a virtual car around a racetrack faster and quicker with data, you sure as heck can learn how to look after your customers better with the right use of data. The overarching ethos around how we use our data is we're guided by what we call the PURE principle, so P-U-R-E. So what does PURE stand for? So the P in PURE stands for purposeful. So there must be a purpose behind how we use the data. Is it relevant to the customer? When we send them a contextual nudge, was it relevant to them? Did it make their lives better? Was it a good offer for them, etc.? And then the U stands for unsurprising. So they can't be surprised to get that nudge or that the offer from you because you thought about it and it wasn't of a surprise. And the R has to be respectful. So it shows a respect. We're not using data we don't need. And we don't use that. If it's something that we need to do and we do it in a respectful way, unobtrusive way, then the R is for respect. And the E stands for explainable. You can explain why you use the data the way you used it, and it's not embarrassing to anyone. So those are the PURE principles on which we work towards in our data governance policy.
I think you have articulated a very simple, easy to understand data governance policy that also captures in the acronym that you've given what should be the intentions around using very sensitive information that's related to customers. So congratulations on being able to encapsulate that for your teams in a very simple but powerful message for them. Su-Shan, speaking of teams, I'm so glad we've come to this point. You have actually previously said that changing the culture was one of the toughest things to do, and you actually mentioned it when we started our conversation. Let's dive into it. How did you and your teams do that? Tell us about some of the hardest things and the biggest shifts that you had to make and address.
You know, here in Singapore, we have a concept called kiasu, which is scared to lose, scared to fail. And so how do we kind of overcome that deep cultural mindset of not wanting to fail? So we said, heck, why don't we just celebrate failure? Why don't we have the failure awards, which really celebrated people who dared to ask for money, right? You know, you dared to ask the boss for money. You did that experiment. It failed spectacularly. But what did we learn from it? And how can you get better next time? Hey, great job. Here's the award, right? So celebrating those moments and having, rituals. So when you want to change the culture of a firm that's this old and this big, you really have to have rituals. And they have to be simple rituals that anyone can follow. So the customer centricity one was a ritual. Hey, remember, be red, right? Respectful, easy to deal with, dependable. And then we also had meeting mojos, M-O-J-O. What's a meeting mojo? Well, the M-O is the meeting organizer. So if you're the meeting organizer, you're the Mo, right? So it's your job to make that meeting a good one. A happy meeting, if you will. And the Joe is the joyful observer. So that's someone who kind of, looks around at the meeting and Joe can say, hey, hang on, Mo. You've been talking a lot, and I think we should open the floor to people who haven't said anything to say something. And then we have the raccoon moments. A raccoon is spelled W-R-E-C-K-O-O-N, so someone who wrecks stuff. So if you're going to wreck an idea, it's okay because you say, hello, I'm going to be a raccoon here. And we go, okay, here we go, wreck it. And you wreck it, right? And it's okay to wreck it because you asked for a raccoon moment. So I think all these little rituals will surely will slowly but surely change the culture of the bank, because it changes the way we work. It changes the way we think. It makes it okay to ask the dumb questions. It makes it okay to disagree with the boss. It makes it okay to experiment and fail. And I think when you have these kind of areas of psychological safety around what you do and how you do things as a team, you do change the culture.
Yeah, I love that you guys make it psychologically safe for people to experiment and to really look at risk in a different way. And I think in financial services, obviously, it's a risk management business. And I appreciate that you allow people to feel comfortable looking at risk in a different way and approaching it in a different way. I think that's a hallmark for being able to actually innovate. Anything that comes to mind for you on the experimental side that didn't work?
So in 2014, my team wanted to experiment with AI for wealth management. So creating an AI with a big company and using the AI to recommend to have a recommendation engine for all our clients. And it was really difficult. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, we failed. We didn't roll it out to customers. We experimented a lot internally, and we experimented with clients. But getting a machine to answer a customer's questions on should I buy Tesla or should I buy, Apple stock, or where's the dollar yen going, or where's sterling going? I mean, it was really difficult because the questions, had to be the answers had to be contextual. How long, when? Is that an overnight question? Is that time frame a year, a month? And it had to fit in with what the customer wanted, and frankly, you didn't know if you were going to be right or wrong. So it wasn't deterministic. And so I think the use case that we had in that instance was wrong. But we allowed the experiment to happen because I think the team learned so much then about machine learning and the use of AI, parsing, natural language processing. I learned a lot from that failure. And the same team that's still with us, are now helping us with machine learning and data analytics. And I think that's great.
You've been very proactive in helping women succeed in the industry for much of your career. What advice would you give to women aspiring to take on leadership positions in banking or in the financial services industry more broadly?
So I will tell them to not just manage their inbox, but to manage their outbox, right? My CEO likes to talk about this. And like it or not, women, particularly women in Asia, do still carry a heavy load for the family. And during COVID, a lot of women had to do both, look after the kids and look after their parents, aging parents, especially in an Asian context. So but the good news is with COVID and everyone working from home, both moms and dads, I think it kind of equalized a lot of that as well. And it was okay for the dad to work from home. It was okay for dad to pick up kids from school or do the grocery shopping or the cooking. So I would encourage women to manage their careers and their trajectory more, and to be not afraid to have those conversations with your seniors or your boss's boss and say, hey, how am I doing? What do I need to do to get to the next level? I need to take some time out, but can I use the flexible work arrangements I have, but still keep on the career ladder? And how can you help me to keep on the career ladder whilst I still have to do flexi work, etc.?
Well, thank you for sharing that, Shushan. And then would you mind also sharing with us some of the current initiatives that you're working on that enable women, and then maybe what you'd also like to see in the future?
So about 19 years ago, I started what's called the Financial Women's Association in Singapore. It was a Singapore chapter, and it was really to help women in banking or financial services with their professional careers, especially as some of them were leaving to have children and needed a leg in to get back into the workplace, or needed a network to help them, or needed professional coaching or technical learnings. And I'm very proud because that has now grown to something really big and has become a great network for women in finance to get ahead. I'm no longer running it, but it's bigger and better than when I was, which is great. And so we're helping a lot of these young women by providing them mentors, by providing them opportunities, making sure, I know at DBS, we always look at the gender equation. We actually have more women than men in DBS today. And we have a very high share of women now at the top as well. So I'm lucky. My CEO and my chairman are great advocates for women leadership. So it's making it easier for them to move up the career whilst balancing families and making it okay. And saying, well, at times you just have to leave a meeting and go back, pick up your son or daughter, and we'll say, well, it's okay. If you need to do that, do it.
I really appreciate you sharing that perspective with us and the initiatives that you're working on to support women in the industry. I want to thank you and the bank for your partnership with us on behalf of everyone here at AWS. And personally, I also want to thank you for your friendship. It's always a wonderful opportunity to sit down and visit with you. Thank you for joining us for Conversations with Leaders.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a real pleasure.